Hello, Armoured Pants here, World of Tank Blitz. I have a full tank guide for you on the Russian line, starting with Tier 1 T-26. Now, we're going to have a look at the technical specifications of the tank first, and then some gameplay. And in the technical spec, we're going to look on an asset called blitzhanger.com. This is Blitzhanger here. You simply type in the name of the tank you're looking for, and here it pops up, T-26. So we can see here, it's Tier 1 Russian tank. So for starting the Russian line, we start here. Now, this is a light tank, which means it has good camouflage numbers, and we will set it up like this. We are going to use the equipment here, and we're going to set it up like this. If you're missing anything, you should just pause and take some notes. But basically, we're going to use gun rammer to give us a better reload time. We're going to use supercharge here on the second and the first column, and we're going to use refile gun. And what are we going to use? Why are we using this? Well, you can run the tank without equipment, of course, but if you have equipment loaded like this, it actually gives you an advantage over other players. For example, here, this allows better penetration, and you will pen the enemy more than they will pen you. So, and the object is to get good in this tank, to learn basic skills, etc. So I'd recommend you do that. This has a decent gun. It does decent damage. It's going to give 40 damage per shot. It's relatively fast. It does 36 kilometers an hour in a straight line, 16 in reverse, and it has pretty good armor for a light tank, especially in Tier 1. If we look at it here, basically the orange and red, the darker the colour, the more difficult it is to penetrate. And you'll see here that it's pretty difficult to pen on the turret, below the turret, and on the front and the lower mantle. So you can see that you can actually bounce some shots in this. That means when the enemy fires at you, their shots won't penetrate you. Even here on the back and sides, of course, it's more vulnerable on the back and sides, as are all tanks in Blitz. But you might even get lucky and bounce some shots on it. Now, here we're looking front on. Now you can see against other Tier 1s, it's quite red up front. It's going to be difficult to pen. Now I want to draw your attention here. If you look at front on and compare it to the which is the below picture, and look at the above picture, you'll see that it's slightly more difficult to pen, and that means it's darker colours. On the top picture, this is angling, and that's because in the top picture the tank is at an angle. In the bottom picture, the tank is straight on. So therefore, this tells us that if you move the side of your tank and create an angle, it's more difficult for the enemy to pen you, and that's called angling. So bear that in mind. And you can create angles by wiggling the tank from side to side. And this actually will enable you to bounce more shots and be a better player. Now, the tank, as we said, it has 45 caliber gun. It's doing 40 to 50. It's doing 40 damage, has 51 penetration. So it's a very good tank. It's mobile. It gets around the map. And now let's have a look at it in gameplay, and also take note of some of the map tactics that we will use here. Now, what I will do in this game is I am going to go. Normally players would go left or right. What I'm going to do is here, I'm going to show you a little tip, something you can do, especially when you're starting off in this game, that somebody else won't do, is go straight down the middle, where you can actually spot up the enemy. Why is this important? Well, when you spot the enemy, and when the enemy spotted, a little light bulb pops over you. When a light bulb pops over you, it means you've been spotted. When you spot the enemy, it's not only you spotting them, but you actually relay their location to your entire team. So if you spot one of the enemy, that means all of your teammates can see where they are. They light up on the map like this, and that means all of your teammates can shoot them. This may seem pretty basic, but if your teammates are unspotted, it means the enemy can't hit them. So by going up here now, I have been spotted, of course I have, but I've also spotted a lot of the enemy from my team, which gives us a huge advantage right from the start. And by moving up and down this hill, I can actually continue to spot the enemy. I can even put some shots in on them without actually taking damage myself. Now, this guy has a rush of blood to the head. Now, what I would suggest to you here, ladies and gentlemen, is do not do this. Do not go out in the open like this. You're basically creating a killing ground for yourself. He has no cover. Golden rule in playing Blitz is that you should move from cover to cover. Therefore, you're exposing yourself for the least amount of time possible. Don't do what that guy did there. Just drive out right into the open where everybody can see you. You're spotted up by the enemy, and you're just going to get blasted and have a very short and unenjoyable game, as that little fella did there. Now, this is what I'm doing here. Is called peekaboo or peekaboom. So what I'm doing is I am firing, moving back into cover. So like that childhood game, peekaboo, I'm firing, reloading, then come back out, shoot, then go back into cover. When you're reloading in Blitz, always try to be in cover. This means that you're not vulnerable when you're not doing damage, and only come out when you want to shoot. So therefore you are minimizing the amount of time that the enemy has to shoot at you, and you're not giving them a target to shoot at. So you can see there in that confrontation with that M3 light, I've actually done a significant amount of damage to him, and he's done almost none to me, because I've been doing peekaboom and he's been sitting out in the open and cover. So that's a lesson to learn when you're playing this tank or any tank. Keep in cover when you're firing, keep in cover when you're reloading, pop out the fire, then go back into cover. So roll back and forwards like this. Now I see that there's a threat behind us, so I'm going to engage that. Why? Well, because as we saw when we were looking at the technical specification of the tank, the back and the sides of the tank are what's most vulnerable. Therefore, if you have somebody coming up from behind you, you really need to address that. Because when you're front on, you always have a chance of bouncing a shot. When you are at the side or you have your back to the enemy, they're probably going to penetrate you each time. Now, as you can see, what I'm doing here is I'm just rocking back and forwards. I'm not giving anybody a target, and I'm just popping out, and then I am just shooting. But you'll notice that when I'm shooting, I'm taking my time. Why is that? Well, aiming is maiming. It's a golden rule to learn. You will see a lot of players rush their shots. They fire before the aiming circle is completely centered. And you see here, this is aiming is maiming. See, I wait until it's right on the center of the target and then fire. If you fire before the aiming circle is in place, or and you've selected the part of the tank which is not red, which you will penetrate, you are going to do significantly more damage than if you rush your shots and fire them off the cuff, because those shots a lot of time will miss, and every missed shot means that you're not doing damage and the enemy has a chance to do damage to you, and therefore you run the risk of losing the game. The more damage you do, whether you or your allies, the better chance you have of winning the game. It sounds very simple, of course, and it's basic mathematics. It's the basic rules of the game. But unfortunately, a lot of players, especially in their early games, don't do this. They rush their shots to try to fire snapshots, and basically they miss out on doing a lot of damage. And of course, that means they're giving the enemy a chance to win. You can see here that I am just carefully taking my time with my shots. But I'm not being stupid. I'm not sitting out in the open to do it. I'm only popping out when I'm going to shoot, and the rest of the time I stay in cover. So there you go. There's a very good game in the T-26. I finished top. I got 4 kills, and I was even playing against some tier 2 tanks there. If we look at the statistics, I fired 23 shots, 19 penetrated, 21 hit. You can see that I did a lot of damage to each of the enemy tanks, and I also got a lot of XP experience for spotting up the enemy tanks as well. Here's an analysis of the credits that I earned in the game. I got 2,232 credits, and on the XP, well, the XP is your experience, and you can see there what I got it for. I got a first class mastery badge, which means I perform better than 90% of other players in the tank. Top gun, master gunner, sharpshooter, and I got a Carius medal. Now, I didn't do anything spectacular in that game. I simply did clever things, or not stupid things. You know, staying in cover when I shoot, etc. Now let's recap. This is a very good tank. It's a very good tank to start with, and the Russian line is very good, along with the German line, one of the best to start with. This is a good gun. It does good damage, as you saw. It will penetrate for you. It's quite fast too, so use the speed as I did there to get around the map, to get into a position where you can actually spot up the enemy. Has decent armour and will bounce some shots, especially if you angle, as we talked about earlier. Move from cover to cover. Don't sit out in the open. Don't go out into the open to get yourself killed. It's just like in real life in warfare. Stay in cover. especially when you're reloading. So when you're reloading, be in cover, then you pop out and fire. If you're caught with the enemy and you have to get into a fight with them, put your armour facing the enemy. It's the thickest part of the armour. And if you're in a brawl, which is where you're fighting a tank one-on-one, wiggle your tank. It makes it much more difficult for him to hit you, much more difficult to penetrate you, dude, and create those angles. The BT2 is the next tank, and there's a full guide in this channel, but here's the thing, don't rush to it. This game is not a race to get to the next tier, and that's a mistake lots of players make. It's not a race to get to the next tier. It's not a race to tier 10 or to get to your whatever tier. It's about gaining experience, gaining basic game skills, getting comfortable in the tank you're in. So do that with this tank, play 50-60 games in it, then go on to the BT2 and check out the guide here in this channel. Okay, take care, subscribe, follow and all that. Cheers now, see you, bye, bye.